who have just joined us, good evening and welcome to second episode of Let's Talk Business. I'm Meghna. I have with me Yashasvi, and we are here to begin and talk about managing stress at work. Actually, eliminating stress from work. So, before we begin, a little bit of introductions about me and about Yashasvi. So, I am a public speaker and an author with more than 1,000 plus hours of public speaking and stage exposure. I'm a tech enthusiast who's now ushered into accounting and finance. I have worked with MNCs, SMEs, small businesses, startups, freelanced on projects. And so I have a bird's eye view when it comes to working culture. Now, over to you, Yashasvi, if you can tell a little bit about us for our first time listeners.
Thank you, Namaskaram. Welcome, everybody. Hi, good evening. Thank you for taking out this time of the evening to spend with us for the next 1 hour. Hi, I'm Yashasvi, and I've been in the corporate since about 10 years, working in different countries such as the US, UK, and India. I have led successfully 15 integrations in a span of 7 years and got promoted, double promoted 4 times in my career. And now I have gone full time into coaching leaders such as myself, high performers, managers on how to increase their influence and get the same results and accelerate into the top 1% easily and effortlessly. I'm so happy that all of you are here today.
Thank you for that, Yashasvi. And before we begin our discussion, can you give us hearts and let us know if you have ever felt stressed out at work? My lovely, lovely audience. Can we get some reactions from you, please? Okay, so I can see some hearts, definitely a topic that is close to heart for sure. So before we begin our discussion for today, I would like to give you all some little bit of fact or value addition and bring about this clarity between worry, stress, and anxiety. More often than not, we actually use these words interchangeably and they actually do not describe the same exact thing. So, worry is like a mental process that includes a lot of repetitive and nagging thoughts, usually focusing around or centered around one thing. For example, it can be fear of losing your job. That's a worry. Now, stress is something that comes into picture when your body feels it, like there's some change physically or emotionally or mentally, and you can feel it. Like some people feel palpitations when they are stressed. So that's actually stress. There's a difference. It's an upgrade. Then anxiety is a further ahead concept wherein the stress actually impacts both your body and your mind. So in stress, it's just one thing mostly. And if it's more than one thing, if your body and mind both are under duress, then it's anxiety. And more extreme cases actually, unfortunately, lead to ailments or even diseases. So it would be very wise if henceforward you guys actually know and use those words according to the situation. So stress again is a very subjective concept, I feel personally, because the definitions of stress can vary. So for me personally, stress is something that comes with deadlines. So Yashasvi, would you like to share some light on what stress means to you?
Definitely. I think with the beginning statement, Meghna, I think we must have scared a lot of people into what stress is and what anxiety is, but hopefully they've gotten clear about what that is. Thumbs up for the clarity that Meghna has provided, audience. Thank you so much. All right, so going into stress, because our topic today is stress, and stress mainly comes from, as Meghna defined for her, it is something to do with deadlines, and for different people, it's on different occasions what is driving stress. But typically, when you look at what that precedent is and how is that coming, there's no one reason as to why that is and why that happens. When you're overworked, stress can happen. When you're underworked, stress can happen. Even the thought of working, some people get stressed. So there are a lot of situations why stress happens, and it's a feeling of being burnout at some point, and that I think leads to a burnout that most managers and most people at work are facing today, in these days, mostly because of the kind of turnover they're having, or the kind of workload they are getting due to the uncertain circumstances, or even when you don't have work, the stress happens. So I think stress and burnout I'm using interchangeably because they both are very much related. And when one happens, it is burnout is not that far away. So handling both and knowing how to be stress free is more important, I think, for us, and knowing the difference between the both. Uh, uh, can create some kind of clarity between in our lives, and both professionally and personally.
I completely agree with you, Yasha. It's like if you can identify what's stressing you out, you can probably actually end up, avoiding a burnout, like preventive measures. So you need to, for me, I feel like I went around and had a personal poll in with some of my friends, and I identified a few probable causes from their answers of what stress could be like for people. So I'm just throwing it out, and let us know with a thumbs up or a heart if you resonate with any one of these causes. For example, the one I identify with, deadlines and overwhelming workload. It's job insecurity at times. Then maybe lack of control and recognition. Not feeling overwhelmed with balancing work and your personal life, or having lack of clarity even. And the most interesting one that came up was ethical dilemmas. So this was something that even was a bulb on for me, and I felt that okay, if people can actually identify what is it that actually stresses them out, it's probably easier to have preventive measures or solutions in their life and their work. So similarly, like you said, having to manage burnouts, and I think burnouts these days are a very common problem, especially at the managerial level. Is it a good perception that I have, or it's just a matter of
Very,
people
very
out there?
true. Yeah, very, very true. See, burnouts happen for a number of reasons, and I want to ask this question to the audience before I give you the reasons. So, how many of you in this poll, assuming that most of you are working or have worked in high stress jobs, how many of you have been guilty of going above and beyond in your career, in the hopes that it can give you a better job, in the hopes that it can make you stay in the current job, in the hopes of getting a bonus? How many have you are guilty of it? I myself am guilty of it, so I'm going to raise my hand. uh, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
yes, I see a
so
lot of thumbs up.
yeah, lots of hands
Go ahead.
raising. So, Kishore, I'd like you to please wait till the end of the session. We'll be taking all the questions at the end of the session, please. Thank you. So Yasha, can we
Yeah.
talk more about how at the managerial level, because at some point or the other, we are managing something, right? So how at our managerial level positions is this issue that's common that is
Relevant.
faced? Is there is a lack of resources apparently, or there is some sort of improper delegation? Are these things that actually contribute to the stress people are having at work?
They can, and in most cases they are. The difference is to figure out how should it not be a problem. So a burnout can essentially happen when you are committed to doing more than what you're capable of at a consistent level. Suppose you are in a M&A integration, or you have a deadline, for example, Meghna, and you have promised to complete a book in a month, but you figured at 15 days deadline point that you've actually taken on a lot more, but you anyway completed because you've given that 1 month deadline, and you said no, for the next 15 days I'm not going to sleep at all and finish the book. But suppose you've done the same thing for the next book and the next book and the next book. At some point, stress becomes burnout, becomes depression, becomes, and it goes down the lane, right? That's the number one reason why I see stress and burnout happening at a consistent level in the corporate. You're stressed because you're taking on more work, and that is leading you to believe that yourself you can do more, or you're in a position where you don't want to say no or offend your manager because because of maybe FOMO, or maybe you want to prove that you can take on more, or you are scared to create that boundary and say that this is what I can take. All of these reasons are leading to your stress directly or indirectly. And the reason that we cannot sustain it longer is you are giving them a wrong precedent. Now, let's say you've completed the book in one month. Your publishing company will come back and say, oh, you've done this in 1 month. Why can't you do the other one in maybe 20 days, or maybe the same 1 month thing? And if you do not create that boundary, or if you do not have that conversation saying that this was a one-time exception, and you don't want the publishing company to go away, or you're scared that they'll go away, and you continue, catering to those needs, they expect you to continue to work at that level, thinking that that's your optimal level. Since that conversation never had, the clarification never happened, and the boundary was never created, all of these are adding up and piling on layer, and that in turn leads to how we discussed in the beginning of stress leading to burnout, leading to depression, anxiety, and whatnot. So that is why first identify what you're feeling and acknowledge what you're feeling, and then create steps and create action items where you can control it in the beginning instead of going down the rabbit hole.
So basically, it actually comes down to this one very big urge of trying to say no, and you suppressing it at the right time, that kind of actually compounds and becomes something so huge. Like, okay,
Yes.
for example, you took this very interesting publishing example, and I really like it, being an author. But yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think that's so somewhere this also comes to play, that you don't say no probably because you want some validation. Probably you're trying to prove a point to yourself or your manager, or some third person, or trying to understand your own limits. But because you do it without conscious awareness, you end up messing up your boundaries. And that brings me to this very important point that needs to be discussed today, which is about understanding boundaries, and kind of why is it so important when it comes to managing stress, or when we talk about stress, why is it so that boundary management comes into picture? And from the audience, I would like a thumbs up if for the first time you have heard about having boundary management as a part of a conversation that is dealing with stress. So let us know if it's for the first time that you are going to be hearing about. Over to you, Yasha.
All right. I'm happy. I think boundaries, nevertheless, have been discussed at a high level, and it's been in the motivational speakers, the growth mindset, what all that you have to set boundaries. But I see where the lack is how do you go about doing it? One, and when do you realize that the boundaries need to be set? Second, when you know when it needs to be set, setting them will not be a problem. So again, going back to why and where you're feeling that frustration, where is that trigger happening, and how many times are you going to give that lenience to somebody else? This time, let's say, as I said, I think we've discussed it in the last meeting as well. Managers or your publishing companies, your stakeholders, your partners, they all will come and give you work because they need somebody to do the work. Even if you're a manager, you're also in some point, especially if you're a middle management, you're also somehow doing the same work that the senior management is giving you. So identifying that you can only do so much, and identifying what work drives most value for you. So let's say that you are continuously doing the work, and your manager is giving you more work, And you being a manager yourself, you are leading teams. And when you are doing the same work and sitting for working during weekends, working during off hours, and just being available all the time, that is not only affecting your work morale and your mental capacities, but that's also affecting your team members. I actually have an example about of someone who had the same attitude of saying, "I will be available over the weekends, so just reach out to me." I mean, just in the audience, how many of you would be willing to work for someone who's openly saying, "Yes, let's continue to work, and I'll be available over the weekend as well"? Isn't that a way of you asking your team members to also be available? Whether you want to or not is irrelevant. It's the precedent that you're setting through the way that you're thinking and the way that you're coming across as. Yes or no? Thumbs up if this makes sense.
Absolutely. I would have ran in the other direction if somebody asked me to start working on my weekend, especially being spoiled by the international culture of having your family time and your professional times, having that boundary. I would run in the other direction totally. I completely resonate with what you're saying.
Right, but that's also the reason why you knowing your boundaries and you setting your boundaries becomes all the more important. When you are a leader, when you are in a managerial position, or when you're a high performer, you don't need to actually have the title, as I said. You can influence through just being yourself and owning yourself. When you are in such a position that you can influence others, it becomes even more important on how you draw the boundaries and how you align yourself, so you're setting the same precedent for your team as well. So boundary setting is all about how are you respecting your time and your work in a way that is conducive and consistent over the long time, and also in a way where it can be productive not only for you, for the people around you and your teams.
So, right, I completely agree. I'd like to add here that being a novice to boundary setting myself, I have realized this, that initially when you go on to set your boundaries, you probably feel pulled back because it's not something that is immediately welcomed, especially at your workspace. Because before this point where you decide to, actually create your boundary, before that you have given so much or this access to your space and time and your abilities and limits, that when you start saying no, and the first no is not essentially taken as well. So if you do try this after today, go back and try having your boundaries. Just remember that the initial few no's are going to be a little bit rough, but you keep at it, and definitely, like Yasha is saying, it's going to help you in the long run. And that kind of brings me to our next point of discussion, which is a lot of people are not able to have a black and white. It's humanly not possible for people to have, clear demarcations between work and personal life, and there's a gray area, and that gray area keeps on growing and growing bigger and bigger and bigger, because most of us are not taught how to create those boundaries. So Yasha, now I would like you to throw some light on this aspect of how we can sort of kind of have a mental demarcation, maybe if not otherwise, and move, have a balance, how to create this balance. Do you have some insights on that?
Oh, definitely. I think the example that you've given on how to differentiate the first few no's, I think there's a better way to do it, and that also answers your question of how to define a boundary, right? So why will boundary setting be difficult for the first time? It mostly comes from, again, the feeling of missing out, or the feeling of being available, or the knowledge of, oh, I have to because my manager expects it. First and foremost, do you know that what you're doing is what is required for your job or for the goal that you have set yourself? Suppose you're aiming for a promotion in the next 6 months. Do you know that you working long hours on this project is going to help you get that promotion, is going to give you that extra edge over everybody else? If you do not have that differentiation, if you do not have that clarity, then what you do is obviously going down the drain. Yes, people are getting, work is getting done, and people are making you do work and appreciating you and giving all of this thumbs up and all of that. But is it ultimately helping you reach your goal? If it's not, then it's time to be strategic. It's time for better planning. Less is more. Be more selective and strategic about what you're choosing. This essentially becomes the golden key for you to eliminate stress altogether. When you know what you need to do to achieve your goal, whatever that might be, whether it's a promotion, it's a bonus, it's an influence, it's finding a new job, whatever it is, or managing up, anything, you need to know what is it that you need to get to the next step. Second thing, what if your manager is, not aware? We have studies show that 66% of the managers don't know what their teams are doing. And even though you're doing the most essential work and you are doing some great work and you're having to work the weekends anyway for this project, and on top of that, your manager is giving you extra work, and you don't know whether to say no or yes because you're on onboarding time, or it's a new job, or you also see that your manager is doing a lot. I think that's the situation where you need to take a stand and say, boss, I have already so much work to do. You can either help me deprioritize some of the work so I can let go of it, or I can do this work after I complete my current assignments, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hint, this can also help you get your first team members or first direct reports if you're looking for a managerial position. Because when you have to deprioritize your work and somebody needs to do it anyway, that's your chance to actually train somebody. And when you're training somebody, you're actually showing your manager that you're capable of being a manager already. So that becomes an added bonus. But if you don't have any of these conversations, if you don't come to any of these clarity sessions, or if you don't know that how to reach my goal with what I'm doing and how to make myself visible or quantify it in a way that is leading me towards my goal, all of this leads to stress at some level, basically because there's a lack of clarity and communication.
That's very interesting that you bring this up, that lack of clarity and communication. And while you were talking, I observed you mentioned that it's important to know like how much I can take. If I do not know what is my capability, I'm not aware of it, then it's very difficult to go to my seniors or even my team and communicate or delegate unless I know. So I think it's important to be aware of your strengths and weaknesses, which brings me to a small, maybe I can share this example because it's just clicked in my mind. So today's event is about a very specific topic, but I would like to share this with our audience that Yashasvi and myself have not really prepared on this topic because we've had experience with a lot of teams and we are very fond of having conversations around work. So if probably there would have been somebody else here today, hosting this event for you guys, they might have gone under a preparation. So it's about knowing your skill set, knowing the gap you have, because if you have a skill set gap or a mindset gap even, it brings you in a situation where you start feeling the stress. Am I right, Yashasvi, to give this example or is it going out of context right now? And if you can relate to this example, give us some hearts. Let us know you are actively listening to us, guys. Give us some reactions and let us know if it's going well for you. So I can see a lot of hearts. That's nice. So yeah, so I really like the aspect of communication also, because I feel that's something we lack, all of us lack. at one point of time or another we overthink and we feel that this is something okay, if it has been given to me, let me try and handle it, let me try and work it out some way or the other, not realizing that probably if I try to over manage everything and overfit everything in my little schedule and my little mind, I might actually end up having productivity issues. I might not be able to give that 100% which I can give. And that's something that now I would like you to discuss, Yasha, that how does stress affect productivity? Because people do not realize this most of the times, that it is affecting them. And if you look at the bigger picture, it actually affects the whole outcome of the business in general.
Very true, very true. That's a great point that you actually brought up. So, one, tying it back to the other 2 points, right? When you don't know what the goal is, and when you don't know this is the goal that you want to achieve, and by doing such work, it will make me achieve my goal. When you don't have that clarity, you're missing out. Now, when it comes to productivity, you are doing 5 things, 10 things in the hope that by doing all of these 10 things and showing them that I am the most capable person on the team to work, you're simply showing your manager that you're a worker. But that's not what you want to do, I hope. You want to scale. You want to use your work as a stepping stone to go further, to achieve something more, to become, to get into the top 1%, to scale up your influence and to get to the right projects in front of the right audience and give you the job satisfaction that you require, or the values that you require, or your job promotion that you require. And when that happens, that's a great thing that should happen. But what is happening right now, to tie back to your point, Meghna, is productivity is being affected in terms of taking on more work. So let's take 10 things. You're doing all 10 things. And when you're doing all 10 things, if you don't know what you're doing, then that's a problem. And when you're doing all 10 things, can you give your 100% to all those 10 things?
Not at all.
I know very few people who can do that.
It's not possible. It's not possible.
Not possible at all, right? Very true. So when you cannot give your 100% or to all those 10 things, you probably are going to feel that frustration from the get-go. I have this work, then I have this work, then I have this work. So while doing one part of the work, you're already thinking about something else. So you're not able to give your 100% to one work or the other work. You might keep thinking that, but I'm moving the needle further. Is what is required, versus you giving 100% to a project, you owning that project completely and making it a success for the entire organization to see that it was your product, it was your outcome. Would that give you much more of a corporate presence, or would you doing 10 small things and showing that you've had experience in 10 different things give you the corporate push? I think the choice is obvious, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely. You actually remind me of a senior who took up this project single-handedly, and he did it so brilliantly that the entire organization actually started being, they wanted to get involved in that project. So when the project was announced, it wasn't that lucrative because, all the efforts had to be put in and 100% attention was needed. And he was the one who actually volunteered for it. And slowly the business went on to be so good that the company actually ended up making it a vertical. So this is something that I think it's a good point that you bring up, that people need to realize that, again, you have to have clarity for sure. You need to know what your goal is, how you're going to move towards it, and then are your values actually aligning with the bigger picture is what also comes in when we talk about stuff like this. Because if your values are not aligning to that project and you still say yes in pressure and get into that project and your heart is not there, you can't give your time, you can't be productive, essentially what are you doing? You are actually ruining your own reputation or brand and then hampering the business in the bigger picture. And this is one place where we can also discuss, Yasha, why people fear so much from setting boundaries and being perceived as unprofessional or having this impact their careers negatively. I mean, a lot of people were there when my senior took up that job, but he was the only one to volunteer. So that says something about people kind of fearing this situation. So do you have any examples or insights to share around this?
Around, see, setting boundaries, I think comes a lot from a lack of having something more. Like if you have a lack of, oh, I lack this, so I need to step into this. Oh, I lack this, I need to step into this. Maybe there's something there that I'm missing out on. FOMO, generally, that is the reason that something like that happens. And in most cases, unfortunately, I've also seen cases where it's difficult to have that conversation with your managers. Honestly, I think unless your manager has, or your leader has gone through the same thing, or your organization supports for you to supports openly for the work-life balance. I have yet to find a manager in all my coaching cases and all my working cases. I've found one manager who sometimes does this as a lip service alone, but at least that's something. But I'm yet to find a manager who openly says, Meghna, you've worked so hard for the last 1 week. Please take the next week off.
That would be so much fun. That would be so much fun. Definitely.
Or even take an afternoon off, or even take 2 days off.
So this
See,
is
those sort of conversations do not happen. So it becomes very much evident for us that what you're doing is not being visible enough or is not being accepted enough, that people are able to honor you for it. And when you see that and you're still doing more and more and more, as you said, Meghna, it's not giving you 100%, and you're setting a wrong precedent of, yes, I can work at this over and above pace for a long, long time, which is unsustainable in the long run, and that's going to lead you to depression. And also, your managers, you're creating a friction. Wantedly or unwantedly, you're creating a friction between your team members and yourself, who are expecting more and more from you, but at some point the well goes dry. So that's how important setting boundaries is, versus how to choose the right project and know that this is where my efforts are going to give me the greatest benefit, and hence I'm going to choose this project and see how I can delegate the rest, so I can make this 1 or 2 projects successful.
So it's interesting how we talked about that tracker last time in our last episode. Also, was this visibility aspect that you just brought up that actually kind of helps even here. So it's not just about credit taking or growing in your career. It actually also helps you manage the stress, because then you know what you have done, you can show what you've done, and then rightfully ask for that break or that pause that you need. And all of us as humans actually need that pause. And like you are mentioning about setting precedents, if we are setting a wrong precedent, being a mid level manager and doing working more than required and tiring ourselves out, and then if suppose we grow in the ladder and go to a higher position, we will form these wrong expectations from the people who are working for us now. So it's not just what you're doing right now, you are actually doing some damage to the future as well, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
So
not only is your mental health getting affected, but also your work life is also getting affected. Your personal life is anyway is getting affected, but you setting the wrong precedent will also give the wrong impression to your team members and for your senior managers. So for people, I hope has this been a light bulb and somewhat of a reminder for you on where you are and what might be happening. Thumbs up if this resonates with you.
Come on, people, show us some thumbs up and let us know if you've had any bulb-on moments during the session today. Oh, lots of thumbs up. That's nice. We've been able to have.
That's good.
Yeah, definitely a lot of insights going on there. So it's. I think this is one subject that we can really go on talking about more and more and more. And I would now like to ask you a sort of a personal question, which is that how do you manage your, work and your personal life? Being a coach, obviously, you probably work more than most of us. And I would really like to know this because you've been in senior management as well, and corporate is a different ball game altogether. And what you're doing now is a different space. So, how do you manage your work-life balance?
Right. So I've given a lot of ideas and tips on how to do that. First of all, focusing on the right things. So you knowing what I'm good at, or me knowing what I'm good at, and me knowing what can be delegated. Just because I'm a senior leader, and just because I've walked the path that my team has done, does not mean that when they are struggling or when they are finding something difficult, I step in and handhold them. When you're a leader, you are actually a facilitator. You are a delegator, first and foremost. That clarity has to come. And when that comes, you will automatically allow the other person to fumble and stumble, and you're being a guide rather than, as I say, a motherly creature where you don't want your baby to fall, but you want him to go safely to the other side of the track without even having a scratch on them. It's okay. They fumbling and stumbling is how they grow into their own selves. That is number one. And knowing which projects are important, where I can give the most value in. I don't have to take all the projects. If I don't know about a certain project, or I'm not familiar with the stakeholder or the concept or the technology, just because my manager is asking it, I don't have to. I can see how I can add most value to the project, do that, and step away. And be very clear on what my boundaries are. This is how much I can do, and this is how much I'm willing to spend my time on this project. And this is where the clarity comes in. When you are setting the boundary, it's not only important for you to draw the line, but actually know for yourself and be able to articulate as to why that boundary is being drawn. For example, I am not able to take on this additional project, and this is how much I can contribute to the project because of so and so and so reason, because of the other things that I'm doing, because of the onboarding structure, because of the training that I have to go for, whatever it is. So clarity, articulation, knowing what projects to take on, and being a delegator, especially for leaders and managers. You are a facilitator, a delegator first and foremost. You are not a task worker.
So what I'm listening is that you lead by example, right? So you set your own boundaries,
correct.
And then you take your team along and, give them that healthy environment to set their boundaries, which brings me to one of the last points of this discussion today. And then we probably might open it to the audience because I'm assuming there'll be a lot of questions. So Yasha, can you tell us what would be a good way as managers and leaders to support our teams in setting boundaries? Any specific practices that you can share with us?
Okay. So last time we gave an acronym, so this time also we'll give them an acronym. I gave a small hint in my in my post today. So last time, does anybody remember the acronym? People who attended the last session?
Give us a heart if you remember last time's acronym.
Acronym. All right. 1, 2, 3. Fantastic. All right. So the acronym for this time is going to be braver. because I want everybody to be brave in setting those boundaries, in setting that work-life balance. You do not have to burn yourself out, stress yourself out, or even think about stress as a negative aspect or worry about it when you're having these conversations or wanting to scale in your career. It's very much possible that you can scale without having to affect yourself or affect your work-life balance. So here comes the steps or the action that I want you to remember and would recommend that you use while having these conversations. Braver, BRAVER. The first one, B, stands for boundaries. So recognize the importance of setting and respecting work boundaries. I think we've spoken enough about how to recognize the boundary setting and how to get the clarity. So if you need, then we can discuss it on a one-to-one as to how to set that for your specific case. R is reconnection. Reconnect with your team members on a personal level to build stronger relationships, especially when you're a high performer and you're doing. At some point, you are disconnecting with your team members because you're just in a mindset of getting things done. So I would request that at that point, when you see that you are getting disconnected, stop, take a pause, have those one-to-one meetings with your team members on a personal level and see what is needed from you to support them in them coming across as their best self or putting their best foot forward. BRA. A is for alignment. Reprioritize the tasks and ensure alignment with your team goals and individual capacities. This is especially true for middle management, where once you're taking on 3, 4, 5, 6 projects, your sprint schedule or your timeline, your task schedule is going to be filled up with all these things. And your team goals of what you want to achieve for that quarter, for that year, for your individual team priorities as well, that gets all tangled up. So it's very important when you're getting into this high work, high stress levels, that you have these conversations with your team members and see, one, how can you align them with the right projects? And two, how do these drive to your team goals and their individual capacities? So this is clearly going to be the conversations that you're going to facilitate and let them know as to how they need to look at the rest of the year or the rest of the quarter and how they need to align themselves. And once you have that clarity, it brings about a lot of cohesion within your group and even for you to manage those projects. BRAV. V is vital agreements. So revise team agreements. And this is going to happen, right? Especially when you have a lot of, and you're one of the main teams that are doing all the projects. Revising these will become very, very normal. And unfortunately, this is the fact in most corporate companies today. But that's okay. That need not deteriorate the team spirit. All we need to see is how can we align the goals? How can we align team agreements for effective collaboration and smoother workflows? If a person is not able to do something because of his workload, how do you then delegate it? How do you take it away? How do you realign his work structure with his work goals and make sure that at no point is he feeling undervalued or neglected per se? BRAV, engagement. So check-ins to engage that your team members are being supported individually and also as a group, that they're being represented in the right conversations, that people are familiar as to who is doing the work, what work they are doing, and what visibility they have within the project is very, very important. Not only you, if you're a high performer, you need to feel validated that you are doing the right kind of work. If you're a leader or a manager, it becomes even more important that you're giving the right platform to your team members so they can individually support and be there for the project in their best capacities. So they are not being in the back, in the blind and feeling like their work is not adding the value, and that again leads to stress, to the other things that we discussed, and we don't want to go there at all. BRAVER. So R is reset. Review and reset the approach, the vacation time, the promotion, the well-being, the balance. Again, this is all about setting those boundaries and saying this is your work schedule, this is how many hours I want you to work, and having those open communications and conversations saying that, hey Meghna, I am out this weekend, or I won't be able to come in for that sales pitch that we're going to do. What do you need from me to know on how to go about it? Those kind of conversations need to happen openly and comfortably, so that nobody in your team is feeling the stress of, if I miss that meeting out, maybe my manager will not give me the next project. That is absolutely not the culture that we want to have. So reviewing those approaches that you have, resetting those approaches if they're not in alignment with how you want to be looked at as a leader. And promoting the work-life balance is going to be essential if you want to change the environment that you're working in, not only for yourself but for your team as well.
So thank you, Yasha, for that. And let me give a quick recap to the most important key takeaways, if I may say so, for today's event and discussion. Would be that the first time actually when you start feeling stressed out as an individual contributor to your team and to your organization, it's important that you start having these conversations right then, because that is the point where it's still all salvageable. If you are feeling stressed out, you have an entire team to help you out. The problem is that we usually do not communicate this till a very later point in time, and that is the point of time where you can't really go out of the work and you can't really put somebody else in the work if that needs to be done. So you start your conversations early, have clarity, know your goals, where you want to go. Are you aligning with the projects and the organization and your team? So you need to know that what you're working for is actually what you're working on. And then obviously the acronym that she just gave you is like really insightful. So now, without further delay, giving a little time to our lovely audience for today, we already have a hand. Yes, Kishore, just give me a minute, I'll let you in. If anybody else would like to ask a question, please raise your hand and I'll let you in for the question. So, yes, Kishore, you can unmute and ask your question, please.
Good evening, panel. Good evening, Meghna. Good evening, Yashasvi, for letting me in. The reason why I'm just want to come and speak is like whatever you speak for 49 minutes now, everything resonates with me. I can tell you as my case study as a history. You can take it as a history. So I want to share with you guys. Need few minutes. That's it. So I'll just start. See what happened. I have joined in a new organization. So on Friday evening, they're giving me the work. Somehow I spend my personal time in the weekends and I've completed the work. After dumping a lot of work also, on Monday morning, I just expected a little bit of appreciation from the team that I didn't get. And then keep on dumping the work and not giving me the proper guidance to do the work perfectly. So they're misleading me. So that I could analyze it. But at least 70% of the work I've done it better. And the team which I'm working is so much toxic environment. Even if I say good morning, they never respond me to saying a written good morning. So I felt embarrassed in front of the team, like where I am working, like where I have come and fallen. So this is one thing. And my manager, when I talk to my manager, he's asking why you didn't copy every mail when you are working like this. I said everything cannot be micromanaged. Like the concerned mail should go to the concerned person. Everything, if I put manager in loop, it will not be good. So this is the case happening with me. And literally, one more thing I want to add. I'm just surrounding with lady bosses and they are like dominating like anything they are experienced. I'm a fresher. So, in spite of that, I've done 70% of the work, but a little bit of appreciation also I didn't get it. On top of that, they're saying it's not done perfectly. So, and when coming to other colleagues, they are aligning well with the work and they are on the same page, but they're not giving me the leads to go ahead with the good work. So this all I have faced, like whatever you have talked in the 49 minutes, everything has resonated with me. So it aligns with me all. 100%.
Thank you, Kishore.
Thank you, Kishore.
For sharing. Do you have a specific question right now that Yashasvi can, answer, or is it just a general guidance you're looking for?
So this is the case history of mine, my what happened to me, and the special thing is, see, corporates. The manager level ethics are missing. Ethics in the sense there is no empathy, towards, for example, people who are doing the work also, there are not set boundaries as you said. One of the employee has left for the day early while my manager was speaking. She said she has other priorities. So my manager was confused, like she's leaving in middle of the meeting. So 90% people cannot speak out what to their managers of their concerns. Every time they put the work, they will always think just to complete and give it, and then talk. After finishing it, they'll talk, not before. So there is never a feedback between a manager and the employees about the work feedback. Every time they look at the 100% work completion only, but not they'll not think about the employee perspective. I have seen in many organizations, even in big organization also, this is happening, and even in small means like there is no rules and all. You have to do it. That's it. So the culture is. No one, even like me, no one can come out and speak. Also, I can tell that.
Okay. All right, Kishore. There are too many things, and I don't think we can handle all of them in this one event. So, okay. So let me first. Specific to the last part where you said there is no empathy with the managers, or the specific example that you gave about somebody who's left in the middle of the day. So, fortunately or unfortunately, yes, I know this happens, and this is partly the truth, that we are missing out on creating those boundaries in the corporate structure. Whether it's being intentional or not, that's a separate issue, right? Let's not get into those specifics. But having said that, with this specific example of this person leaving in the middle of the meeting and during the day, and you or not being able to have the conversations before the work start.
At the end of the day, her work is finished, so she want to go at 5 o'clock to her house. So manager was surprised in middle of the meeting. She's going, and manager was expecting her to stay back since he was speaking in the meeting.
But there is a meeting, no? How can you call at the end of the night? It's not. The meeting is happening.
It's general conversation.
Oh.
But she's saying, I have the priority.
Okay.
Never
mind.
Manager is expecting her to stay back.
Okay. Yes. That is something that happens, and in most situations, yes, it is a hard conversations to have. As I said, it's about drawing those lines strategically that creates value. And of course, there are going to be micromanagers, as I've explained before, who expect you to work weekends, expect you to stay until 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, because that's the culture that they're used to. And before we make those drastic decisions or come to the conclusions that, oh, this is a toxic environment, oh, this is, I have to move on, I have to go to the other positions or to go to other jobs, I'm going to leave you with this one question and one point. See, unless you draw the line, the other person is not going to recognize it or even agree to it or see it per se. So when you have to draw the line, yes, it's going to be difficult. But you saying, I have done 70%. What else is required for me to do the job better? Or saying, this is my work timing until 5 p.m. If you want me to remain for longer hours, let's discuss our work timings again. Or today it's not possible because I have an appointment tomorrow or appointment following this. Is there something that you would like to discuss with me right now, or can we continue this conversation tomorrow? Always making that clear that you're not disrespecting the other person, but you're giving importance to something that needed to be done, or that's something that needed to build you up either mentally, physically, personally, professionally, whatever it is. The lack that I see is you telling them that I need to leave at this point, but not giving the explanation of why. If that's not there, then it's easier, especially for a micromanager who wants to get into every conversation. You not giving that clarity will automatically scare him, saying that they don't have the control over you. And that's one of the best ways to deal with a micromanager is to give them as much clarity as is required. Hopefully that made some sense to you, Kishore.
Yeah, Meghna. I got it. What my point is, so everything we cannot put manager in the loop, right? I mean, there is a certain issues which manager takes up, we should put him in loop. Every time I do a mail, I should not copy him, right? It is an internal conversation happening between us. So
why not? He's a manager. If he wants to be copied, copy him. He wants to be there, clearly.
Sorry to interrupt here, but Kishore, this question would be valid in this discussion today if it is giving you stress personally. Otherwise, like Yasha has mentioned, this is actually a topic to be dealt with on a whole separate discussion. Isn't how you deal with your senior managers or how you behave as a manager in general. So if it is giving you stress, then maybe we can, actually discuss that point. And this would probably be your last question, because I need to ask if somebody else has a question as well. Okay?
One last question. I think you can give a chance for others. I'll ask last. That will be a good idea, I guess.
It's because okay. We are already discussing, so you can ask your question right now, and then we'll move on to the next person.
Even the experienced people are overloading with the work to the newcomers and not giving the correct path to lead them. So the leadership qualities are missing even in the senior members of the team and even in the managers. As you said, everything should be copied. Manager also knows what is happening, because at the end of the day, he'll be knowing every point who's doing what. Even if he's not copied also, definitely he'll be knowing it. My concern is there should be a limit in giving the work to the employees. अभी नया आया है उसको पूरा वर्क दे दो, ऐसे नहीं होना चाहिए ना. Means it should not happen like that. So there should be a limit even with the manager side end, right? Literally, my concern is literally they have given me, to HR, literally they have given me 60 profiles just to screen from end to end. I have to take all the interviews. So in spite of doing everything, those people are continuously pushing up. So I did not like the approach of if one is doing is okay. If all the teams are on the same boat, means I felt something toxic over there.
Okay, sorry. So Kishore, I'm going to ask you to reach out to me personally, because this conversation needs to happen, and to give you something to take away, because I see there's a wrong perception or there's an incorrect perception that I know most of us have gone through it, including myself, where we expect our management to know what we are doing. And there's actually a survey that's been conducted by Harvard Business Review which says that 66% of the managers don't know what their teams are doing. And you know why? Because they are also doing that much amount of work, if not more. Maybe it's not being seen by you, it's just a perspective change that we need to come to. So I would request you to reach out to me personally, and I have a masterclass this Sunday that I would really recommend that you attend, where I will be giving you strategies on how to change perspectives and get clarity on how to communicate and how to set boundaries, and be diving deep into that as well.
Thank you, Kishore.
Yashasvi.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking your question. I'd now like to move to the next question. So, Nanda, you can unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Yeah, hi Meghna, hi Yashasvi. Thank you so much. As expected, it was wonderful. It is not a question as such, but I really want to I resonated something very strongly at the part where you said drawing boundary is so important, and agreeing on working on weekends. I did that mistake terribly, in my initial days, not knowing how to set boundaries and what it might lead into, and then ended up into a burnout. I think the strategies or the pointers you gave were amazing. I have learned a lot after my experience, but I think if someone start implementing these things at the very beginning, I think that would be a very great one. They can totally avoid getting into a burnout situation. Yashasvi, thank you so much for this.
Thank you. I'm happy that you resonated, Nanda. Absolutely. Knowing when to draw the boundaries and knowing what is an exception versus what becomes a rule will create that clarity for you. I don't need to teach you how to influence. I only need to teach you how to look at what you're doing wrong. Is my coaching style.
Yes.
Thanks, Nanda. Thanks for your feedback. So before I close, we have another question, and this will be the last one. So I'm allowing this question. Just a sec. Yeah, Nagrani, you can unmute and ask your question. Nagrani, please unmute and ask your question. Okay, looks like she's having some sort of network trouble. Maybe another day for this question. So before we leave you guys and wrap this up, if any of you is looking at a detailed manner of how to create boundaries, you can go and check out my podcast. There's a special episode on boundary creation. If you need tips on influencing and how to deal with your managers and how to look for promotions, please go and join Yasha's masterclass. And if you have got benefit from this 1 hour of audio event, just imagine the kind of help we both can give you in one-to-one sessions. So do not hesitate to DM us or reach out to us. If you're not following both of us yet, please go and follow us for good content and valuable content that actually helps you at work. So if there are no more questions, I can see one hand. Yasha, would you like to? Okay.
Sure.
No more questions. I think it's a wrap up. Do you want to say something before we go?
I think this person is wanting to come, or
I'm not sure if they have a.
All right. Okay, so if they really want, please do not feel free to reach out to any one of us, depending on your question, and we're happy to answer you or direct you to one of our sessions, one-to-one sessions. All right, thank you all for joining. Thank you for spending the past 1 hour with us, and hopefully you've gotten enough value and light bulbs and insights to help you move forward, and looking to have more such organic conversations with you, Meghna, next week.
Yeah,
See
for
you.
sure. So, guys, tune in next week, Wednesday, same time. We'll be here with another episode. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much for listening to us. Until next time, it's us signing off. Take care.
Bye. Namaskaram.